What up, world? This is the GNetik recording live from somewhere outside of Chicago. And as you can see, we've got a really tall box here today. I think anybody who follows any of the social media outlets, whether it be the GNetik.com, Instagram, or any of my stories, and I've probably even hinted at this in other YouTube videos, but we've got some Brian's gear in here. And if that wasn't obvious enough, there is a giant B-star in the box. So truth be told, I have not taken anything out of the box yet. The only thing I did, because this was really heavily doodly taped up, was open the box ahead of time just for ease of filming the video. And other than knowing that there's a clothing item on top, I have not dug into this box too much. So just to recap, the equipment that I recently ordered from Brian's was the TGN Spec GNetik 4 pad. And whenever I do TGN Spec on Brian's equipment, it means that I heavily customize the pad versus what's stock. And that also includes a custom graphic. So my first set of pads was done around the optic, and I added a professor strap, changed the front material to make them a little bit lighter, had the custom graphic, tweaked some of the internals on the blocker, and went to an anchor tee on the glove and asked for a special overlap break-in. This set of pads here, we will go through it item by item as we unbox the gear. One thing to note is that when I did the first set of TGN Spec gear, I'd actually previously worn the stock optic, so I had a really good feel for what the stock pad was and what I wanted to change. With the new GNetiks here, this was just a shot in the dark based on my feedback from optic, from TGN Spec optic, and working with some of the people at Brian's and Rance at the goalie crease who gave me some feedback on what I might like in this newest set of gear. And shout out to the Vincenzo Arnone who helped develop the final rendering of this graphic, and Jake who won the Instagram contest and did the initial napkin sketch of this graphic. So let's dive into this box and see what's in here. All right, so as I mentioned, I knew there was a clothing item on top and didn't even open it before, but this was as far as I got. And this is a hoodie from the goalie crease, which is where I ordered this TGN Spec gear. Got the logo kind of embossed on there, got the black skate laces. This is kind of a performance fleece style hoodie that you'd see from Nike or Under Armour. So really excited about this. Always love swag and giving it away, but this is pretty slick. Could be a home run wearing to the rink in the right type of weather to the gym. So we'll have to see if I hoard this one for myself or throw this up on a Name That Goalie contest or some other contest. All right, let's get maybe some of the smaller items out here. A couple more water bottles from the goalie crease, which is outside of Toronto and where I order all my gear. They do a ton of Brian's and a ton of custom. So if you have any questions, I definitely suggest making them one of the retailers that you look to order your gear from. And they sell pretty much most of the major retailers as well. So if you like kind of what you see here and what the goalie crease helped me out with, but you're not a Brian's guy, you can definitely check them out for other things. So we got 2 water bottles and a sweatshirt, which will probably end up as some giveaway swag, or I might keep the sweatshirt. Looks like we've got the blocker on top, the glove down there, and the pads right there. And one of the other pieces we have here is an extra set of strapping. As I've mentioned on a lot of my social media accounts, I think that elastic strapping is overused. This started way back when I used to change a lot of the elastic strapping for the back plates of my chest protector to nylon so they'd stay in place and stay more snug. And a few years ago, reading some of the research about how strapping can potentially affect seal, always kind of gets my brain tinkering with trying different stuff. So I did order an extra set of the calf smart straps with nylon, the kind of seatbelt material that Brian's uses for their smart boot strap. And I also have the stock elastic. That is the beauty of a lot of the new strapping systems. It's very easy to pop one thing out and add another. So I'll definitely have the flexibility to go back and try what I want to try. All right, so on to the moment everybody's been waiting for. First item out of the box is the blocker. So if we take a look, again, this is the custom graphic that Jake submitted for the Instagram contest that won. A lot of people have called this Iron Man or Voltron. I am not into comic books or cartoons, so no part of me thought about this with this graphic, threw it up on the Instagram, and it was the most picked, so that's why we went with it, and I think it's sharp. It's not solid colored pad crew, but anything past that, I think it's great about it. So if we take a real zoom in here, did standard white Gen Pro, matte black Gen Pro, gold weave, and red weave. And basically everything that isn't the face of the blocker on this is red weave Gen Pro. And then the only hints on any of this gear that it is based off the GNetik 4 is going to be some of the sidewall graphics and some of the graphics on the boot. I asked for none of the heat transfer graphics because I think it gives it a way cleaner look. And if we look at new features on this, the BOA wrist strap system was moved to make it more functional on the blocker. The glove side is the reduced kind of size glove size that Brian's went with on the optics, so more in line with the rest of the industry. Get a nice grip material there through the palm and onto the index finger. Got some padding around the tip of the index finger there. One of the other things with GNetik, with keeping with the GNetik, is the two-piece sidewall for anybody that used the optic gear. And then also the Sub-Zero before that, that had the one-piece sidewall. So those are all kind of the stock new features on it. And then if you want to see how the BOA works, if you haven't seen this before, that's it. A couple twists, and because there are literally little cables, you can see those black wires in there. It's nearly impossible for that to come loose. If you do want to loosen it, you've got to physically pop the BOA up, and you can see how quickly and how loose it opens up, and you get it snug. So theoretically, you probably could put your glove on, or put your blocker on first, BOA, put your glove on and BOA, but that might be kind of cumbersome in practicality. You're going to want to use the BOA every here and there, just kind of set it where you like it, and it's going to be very set it and forget it. You're not going to get like sweating causing nylon straps to wear out, or leather straps as well. If you had a custom option like that in your blocker, those can stretch out over time. The BOA won't stretch. It's very reliable, and with the dial, you get really precise little increments. So if we talk about custom specs, so we got custom graphics, custom logo. The two big custom specs I have on this blocker are what Brian's refers to as Anderson's pad, and that is an option from Craig Anderson, and this is something that I picked up on a set of gear that I had modded by Dennis at Factory Mad. There's actually some extra padding between the back of the blocker board and the front of the palm of the glove. And basically what this does is moves your hand further away from the blocker board, and I find it increases the range of motion. So it allows you to wear the glove nice and snug so it feels protected. But you can see there's a pretty good pad there. Keeps your wrist further away from the blocker board, kind of gives it a nice floating feeling, but because it's further from the board, you can still keep the wrist tight and have good range of mobility. So that's awesome. Second thing that I had put on this is there's actually hard Lexan in the face of this, which is basically like a plexiglass-like material. And that was done in the spirit of hot rebounds. So even though one of the improved features from the GNetik 3 to the GNetik 4 is a harder foam face on the blocker, I wanted to take that as far as I could take it, so I added Lexan to it. One of the downsides of adding Lexan to any of your gear is that it is a very hard, heavy plastic, so this blocker does weigh a little bit more than the stock blocker. So if you are thinking about getting that option, strongly suggest you think about how much weight matters to you. Putting it on though, it doesn't feel heavy in my hand. I mean, I was actually pretty curious. As I mentioned, I didn't pull anything out of the box before this video. So I was kind of curious to put it on my hand, see if it felt heavy, and compared to the optic or the CCM P2 I've been using, I don't notice anything instantly. It's not like, man, that blocker's heavy. It feels good. Really happy with the behind the wrist padding here. The new BOA system's great, super easy. And for anybody that was concerned on an optic that the BOA dial is exposed and might break, even though you got a warranty on those, Brian's and BOA will take care of you. This also has some padding in front of it well. So generally speaking, everything on this feels like a home run out of the box. The optic blocker was actually probably my least favorite piece of gear in the optic set. It's not to say it was bad. It was super lightweight, and especially when I did the TGN Spec and I had the extra padding there and I kind of had the more free-floating wrist design, I really liked it. The couple knocks on it is the rebounds weren't as hot as I would have liked, which is one of the reasons I went with the Lexan inside of here. And then the sidewall, I never personally had any issues. Like I never, took a puck to the wrist that I felt, didn't break my wrist or anything crazy. But just if you kind of looked at the construction, that blocker was all about making it as absolutely lightweight as possible. The GNetik here is a little bit more beef in the sidewall and this two-piece construction. So just kind of as a matter of principle, I like the beefier sidewall on this as well. So this definitely, and again, I haven't been on the ice with it, but just pulling it out of the box, definitely seems like it answers the couple areas of concern I had on the TGN Spec optic gear. So blocker feels great. And as always with any of the Brian's Pro gear, made in Canada. All right, so let's see what is easiest to grab out of the box next. One of the water bottles just fell there behind me. So this is the glove. All right, so you can see I am pulling this out of the plastic. The first thing I'm gonna do when I slide my hand in is do a flap to show everybody what it looks like. And that is out of the box closure. And as great as the optic closure was, I'm literally shocked that they somehow made this thing close better. I don't really know if you can quite see it. It's a little bit cumbersome to get the camera at the right angle, but I mean, that is pretty wild. I wish I had this glove earlier when I was at the hockey store today, because I would have loved to compare it to some of the other gloves on the shelf, but pretty comfortable saying this just might be the most break-in ready glove I've ever seen. So let's take a look at the glove itself. So same theme as the blocker, white Gen Pro, matte black, red weave, gold weave. So some of the other things that are a little bit different on the glove is I love a Nash palm. That is this black material here that is not matte black Gen Pro. This is Nash material, which is almost like a suede. And it gives the the glove a little bit of a softer feel. And it'll create a little bit of more friction as the puck hits the pocket and slow it down. So Brian's has always traditionally done this on the GNetik line of gear. Guys like Craig Anderson swear by this option and use it all the time. So I went with the black Gen Pro here, or the black Nash here. Only downside is that red Nash doesn't exist, so it kind of breaks up the graphic, but I just thought with the black here, it'd kind of look a little bit cleaner than the white patch here. And inside the glove, we have the white Nash material and did the white there so it blended with the top graphic there and the skate lace pocket here. So in terms of the other custom specs on this glove, this is gonna have a skate lace pocket, the classic Brian's anchor tee, and then it's 1 inch additional depth as well. And that's one of the reasons I don't go with a double tee, is that I find a single tee has that nice snap feel when the puck hits it, but when it's an inch deeper as well, it's super wide open, you shouldn't get any pop outs. And that's the reason that I go with that combo versus a double tee. I think that's one of the most common questions I get with the specs of gear I normally get, and that's because the double T seems like it's the most popular option right now on gloves and all the new pieces of equipment coming to market. So if we take a look at the glove itself, this will have a different break than the optic glove. The optic glove is more based off the Sub-Zero. This is a continuation of the GNetik. I mentioned earlier in the video that I got the overlap break-in on my optic glove, and that was to make it break in a little bit more like a GNetik. And as you can see, when I say overlap, it's in this position. The back side of the glove overlaps with the front, and we can actually see some of the T's and some of the fingers. The glove breaks in online a little bit more. It's on seam like that, and it just changes the way the break feels in your fingers. I'm very traditional with my gloves. I like my fingers basically to do most of the action, which is what we have here. And my thumb's obviously involved a little bit, but very far from like the famous Vaughn 5500 style, which is not my preference in glove at all. So you can see I'm just constantly closing this thing. I am amazed. One thing I can say too, a little bit versus the optic, I'm not sure if it's just kind of the noise, but glove also feels like it's been a little bit beefed up. The fingers feel a little bit stiffer, and I mean that in a positive way. It feels really nice and protective. If we take a look, a design trend that went between the Sub-Zero 3 and the optic at Brian's and the GNetik 3 and the GNetik 4 was kind of a flattening of the fingers to give it more of a pancake. So as you can see, when you close the glove, it's got a really, really good seal, and it would be like nearly impossible to get a pop out on this glove. So it's one of the changes. And then getting kind of an expected option you'd expect going from GNetik 3 to GNetik 4 after it debuted on the optic is the BOA. So similar to the optic, you've got the double BOA straps there, one for your wrist and one for the back of the hand. The back of the hand is actually one of the kind of underrated features on this glove, because this can allow you to squeeze this tight and really push your palm and your fingers deeper into your glove if you like to really get your fingers inside your glove more. Some of the other tweaks on this glove around closure is additional elastic. So the BOA system here is actually attached. You can see that gives with elastic. And the thumb piece here as well is given with elastic. So the reason that this is if these two pieces are nylon or Gen Pro, as we go to close the glove, it's going to create stress here and create stress here, which is going to limit how well the glove seals, how effortless it closes. And over time, that's going to kind of wear. And again, but versus when we use elastic there, the elastic's going to give and naturally allow the glove to flex and close. So that's a very sneaky little detail. But as you can see with how well this thing closes, I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed with that. So doing the BOA dials up to kind of how I'd probably set it in the game. I mean, that is more broken in than most people's gloves after 2 years. I mean, that is just wild. It's one of those things that as a goalie, I don't know if you guys are the same way, but just literally never gets old. You know, trying on gloves in the store shelf, trying them on, see whose glove flexes the best, and especially comparing it now that this is my third different Brian's glove in the last year, and being amazed how each one just seems to close slightly better than the last. You know, as they tweak the layups and you get the break-in time on the machine. So that is the glove in a nutshell. And again, back of it is all red. Got our TGN Spec logo there. And only thing we didn't cover is that being that the GNetik is kind of in the thief line, it has the thief eyes on it. Normally the thief eyes are reserved for the double T, and this is the anchor T, but no issues there. That's always kind of a fun detail. And it's also kind of out of sight as well. So pretty sneaky little move there. So let's check out the pads next. All right, so here we are. Last part of the unboxing. So first thing we'll notice before we even pop these out are that the Brian Smart Strap toe straps have been updated on the GNetik 4. This is a brand new Premier, not been on any other Brian's gear before. They've gone to the round elastic shot cord style. They've kept the kind of over closure thought from the other smart strap with the flat elastic that they were using. So you'll go in, wrap that around and close it. So there's pretty much no chance that that's going to come undone. Huge advocate of pro laces, so be very interested to try the Brian shot cord, see how it does. And like with the flat smart straps, if it's not something I'm a fan of, or just like the feel of the pro laces better, not to say that this is a bad design, that's a really easy thing to swap out. Next custom thing I have on these pads is an offset toe. So the standard GNetik 3 and even the Optic will come with a large toe bridge with 3 separate holes, allowing you to put it in either place. I know I like the offset design, shaves a little bit of weight off, so I have a very minimized toe bridge here. So it's trimmed down in weight, and as you can see, it's small and thin. This iteration only has a thin piece of foam inside of it. It's a little bit thinner than some of the other ones. And one of the sneakiest features on the Brian's pads is that now with all the elastic strapping, if you carry your pads outside your bag, there's no real easy way to carry them. Carry an extra skate lace in your bag, tie it in that loop, throw them over the shoulders, and you're in good shape. Last item, if we look at on the boot, is the brake. So I was actually initially going to get a 412 on these pads. And the feedback I got, which we'll get to in a second, is that I went with the Optic outer roll, is that would actually naturally make the pads a little bit more flexible. So I went with a 411 just to make sure that I had the stiffness I wanted going up the pads. So let's get all of the pads out of the box, and then we'll dive into some of the features after we just went through the boot. And looks like there might be something else in the bottom of the box, which we'll dive into last as well. I'm not quite sure what that is. All right, so there they are. Jake's graphic with the finishing touches by Vincenzo Arnone in the flesh. So as you can imagine, same design concept as the glove and blocker, red weave, matte black, gold weave on the gold accent, and then the regular white. Unfortunately, due to Brian's shortage on the colored Primo material, couldn't get red Primo, but the white works really well with this graphic. So this will have the carryover that debuted on the Optic, the Opti Slide, which is going to be the Primo material with hard foams under this to give it a nice firm seal and good sliding. Got the TGN Spec logo on the thigh rise. Got a new knee cradle there. 3D molded style knee cradle with their SBA non-slip grip material. And this will bring us to one of the TGN Spec options versus stock is I removed everything. So the stock material, or stock pad rather, I believe has some SBA grip there. And then an optional removable knee flap. I know I like the wide open knee, so I got that right out of the way. So the only way I can wear these pads is with the knee strap down on the calf. These pads also come with a firm knee block, which is one of the custom specs that I got on the TGN Spec Optic, and that just gives it a better seal and a better snap when you go down into the butterfly. That's an option that a lot of Brian's Pro guys get. And then you can see they've got the knee stabilizer off the back of the Primo and the 45-degree angled cutout block as well on the knee. So this is also an exclusive new option on the GNetik 4. It's the new strapping system. The latest version of the Smart Strap, I guess this is probably 4th generation, is much cleaned up. It's just 2 straps. One at the knee, in this case onto the calf, one across the back, and then if you so wanted a 3rd strap like Yaro Halak, you can just insert another strap that goes there, and that would Velcro into the bottom. This has some mix of mesh and SBA grip inside of here. So what's different on this is that on some of the older Brian's models, older GNetik, and then also like the existing optic that's in the store, is there would be another flap inside the leg channel here to create a cradle. So a lot of your Velcro would go from inner flap to inner flap, and then you would have one outer flap connecting it. Right now, you're basically going from inner gusset, strapping directly to the outer flap, and your leg sits in here. So there's been a whole flap here inside the leg channel removed. So this is designed to give the pad better rotation and better seal. And as I mentioned earlier, I like tinkering around with strapping. When we opened up the video, I showed I had an extra set of straps. That is the nylon straps that I'll throw on at some point and try it. And again, super easy to take those on and off. Just a couple of plastic D-rings. It'll take me 5 minutes or less to swap the straps out. And odds are I will probably start with the nylon straps, and if I have any issue, I'll revert back to the elastic. So look at some of the new mesh details on this. So one of the features you won't really be able to see that's been part of the Brian's GNetik line is trying to get it to have a more traditional feel. And one of the biggest differences between optic and GNetik, even if you get them customized, so like on this pad you can see I have the optic outer roll, it's still going to be different than the optic pad because it has a different core. This pad here, even though it uses Brian's E-foam, will have some like reverse knee rolls, which gives it better flex in the knee and a little bit more of a traditional knee roll style feel, even though it's got a flat face. So Brian's has a very creative approach for people that like the feel of a puck off a knee roll, but want that clean look and predictable rebound of the flat knee rolls. So that's inside the mesh vents here. And if you check out Brian's website, they actually have some pretty good pictures of that up right now. And as I mentioned, optic outer rolls. So did the optic outer roll, which is very thinned out if you can't tell checking out this video, like it's basically non-existent. I did that for two main reasons. One is something I picked up off Aaron Dell's set, is that if you have a busier graphic that goes right through the outer roll, having the flatter optic style outer roll allows the graphic to flow a little bit better because it's a flatter surface. So with the gray weave area there, the gold weave area, thought it would look better with the optic. Second thing, and this is something I noticed going between sets of gear last year, I guess in the last 2 years or so, had an older GNetik 1 model, or a couple different sets of Bauer 1S, CCM P2, two different sets of optic, is that in the RVH, I really liked the seal with the optic because your shin is much tighter to the post. It feels like it's a better seal, and pushing off the post as well. It's just kind of a more connected, more comfortable feel. That's not to say that a thicker outer roll, which is standard on most pads or on the GNetik 4, is wrong. That's just a preference thing for me and how I like to do my RVH style. And again, from the graphic to try and make that gold accent look as smooth as possible in the pop. So for those two reasons, I went with the optic outer roll. And with optic as well, I liked the fly pad. So that's another reason why initially I was going to get a 4-2-1, so a little bit more break at the knee and then the very stiff thigh rise. And because of the custom outer roll, I went 4-1-1 to make the GNetik as stiff as it can be. Traditionally, GNetik's going to be a softer pad and your optic will be a stiffer pad. One of the other changes on the TGN Spec gear here compared with stock is the face of the pad. I asked for extra hard HD foam, which will give me even hotter rebounds. Same thing that I asked for in the blocker where I had the Lexan added to really juice up the rebounds. Same concept applied to the pads, except you don't want hard, stiff, rigid plastic that doesn't flex in the front of your pads. So I went with the hardest possible HD foam over the full face of the pad. One of the reasons that some people may not like that option is depending on how hot you like your rebounds, may shoot them out further than you may be comfortable if you like your rebounds in tighter. And then secondly, it does add some weight to the pads because the thicker and denser the foam is, the more it weighs. That's just a physics thing, no way to get around it. So we'll throw these up on the scale. And for memory, stop optic was about 5 pounds. The TGN Spec, where we went with a lot of Cordura Defender material, that was about 4.6, so we almost got half a pound off per pad. With the TGN Spec here, these actually might be a little bit heavier than stock, which is kind of unusual for me in a lot of my projects. but it's always fun to try new things and always in the spirit of creating new content for people that like to tinker, custom order gear. I'll make the mistakes and you guys kind of can learn from some of my trial and error.